So we're from Lookback. If you are unfamiliar with Lookback, we are a research tool that helps you conduct moderated and unmoderated research. So if you're not using Lookback for qualitative research, you are missing out, and you need to talk to us after this session.
We're out of t-shirts, though. So.
We're out of t-shirts,
yeah.
Yes. So I don't need to convince anyone in here about the importance of research in building a product. That's what we all do every day, right? And I also don't need to convince you about the challenges that we face in building a product as researchers. So we're looking for buy-in from key stakeholders from across the organization. We're trying to insist on the qualitative why with a quantitative what. And we're trying to insist that we are also at the beginning of the work and on through to the end, so that we're not just at the end when a product is actually created. So we believe that the importance of research in building a product is the same as the importance of research in building a company. In building a company, you are building relationships with people from across the organization. In building a company, you are collecting and listening and applying feedback to create a better experience. And in creating a company, you are constantly keeping a pulse on the overall health of everyone, so your company doesn't die a slow and painful death. And to prove that to you, I brought along a friend of mine who's currently building a company, Henrik Mattsson, CEO of Lookback.
Hi. Right. The importance of research in building a product is the same as the importance of research in building a company. And basically, the reason this is true is that companies are products too. Companies are products for their employees. So the users of the company is the employee. Companies have features, they have UI, they have onboarding, they have all kinds of functionalities that you may or may not know is there as an employee, and you may or may not have access to, but you want to. And a company that is well-designed, is a well-designed product, will help their users to success. So there's no end to this metaphor, basically. It's just like customer success of companies. But if it's not well-designed, it's going to be really hard to leverage your skill set as an employee. And for people like me who build companies and try to figure out all of these things in the product, like, what's the plan? What's the vision? Where does the process start? And what's the reason? And the kind of the goal and the vision and the reason is that it's going to be amazing. So this is kind of how we think. My company is a unicorn Lego spaceship with rainbow lasers, and it's going through space. And if you're using this company, if you're an employee, you're going to go to these cool planets where there's gold and IPOs and cool things. And we don't see it in this picture, but inside, of course, there are ping pong tables, free ice cream. It has amazing features, and the engines are fantastic blue sparkly thingies, and it goes really fast, right? And look how happy I am driving that spaceship. This is kind of, it's a very passion-driven, joyful process. I think a lot similar to engineers when they get passionate about problems, right? I'm going to solve this thing. But because companies are products too, companies have user experiences. They have a user experience that their users experience. And it's not this. It's probably more something like this. So there are no wings. You should have wings on an airplane, especially as it's already started and it's heading down the runway, and there's a big concrete block at the end of the runway where it says "End cache." And, people are holding on for their dear lives. And it's like, there's a captain rambling in the front, we're a spaceship, we're going to go to planets. And they're like, spaceships should have walls. Like, I don't know if there are any rocket scientists in here, but they would tell you, you need walls on your spaceship when you go to space, right? So the UX is pretty bad, especially in a startup, but it never ends. Like, there's always the next challenge. If it's not that you're on the runway trying to take off without wings, it's that, competition is coming, or, something else scary is going to happen. So even in bigger companies, the UX can be pretty scary for the employee. And this is where people like me have a lot to learn from people like you. And by you, I mean the user researchers. Sorry to any engineers and other people who are in the room. It's not that we haven't learned these things and that we don't think about them, but we have a lot to learn, I think, from understanding UX, so the UX mindset, understanding that this is different, making it our priority, and understanding how to access this and understand it. You can't just go and say, hey, Todd, how do you like the company I built? Todd's going to be like, it's great. It's not great. So you have to learn these skills, right? And to prove how useful these skills can be, I hired Kacie.
Yes.
There you go.
And Tapanitha.
And Tapanitha, yes.
So yes, I've been at Lookback for the past, since September, and before that I was at eBay leading global mobile research, and some of my colleagues are actually here from Kacie. Hi. And then before that, I was working in various agencies, conducting research, and food startup also. But really, what kind of wraps all of this together is I like building products because I live for the experiences, for the results, and how people actually experience it themselves. And that's what inspires me.
Right. So you know, like Alec would say, you know your shit. Basically, this is, you know about this, how important it is for building a product, and you've seen it. You've built practices. You worked for agencies where everything was already up and running, and this is what you do.
Yeah.
You've also built practices within companies, and you've joined big companies and small companies and everything.
Yeah.
So basically, you're an authority on this issue. What would you say happens when you don't do research?
Well, we all also can agree that the importance of research in building a product is detrimental. But we can also see things in real life where research was not done. So there are plenty of products out there without user research that kind of get to a fairly successful place, but there's a price to pay ultimately when you don't have UX research.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's that price?
You get things like this, Cheetos lip balm, and
Yeah.
so I can just imagine what the big brain room was like when this idea came to fruition. It was just probably, closed doors, a group of people, and they're like, dude, you know how much you love Cheetos and how you can scrape that off your finger when you eat it? And you know how much you love having moisturized lips? What if we made this even more awesome product and made Cheetos lip balm? You could always taste the Cheetos. I would also venture to guess that there were no users used in this study.
Or the recruiting was really bad.
Yeah, recruiting was bad or the marketing was bad.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with users.
Right.
And so you can do all of, you have to talk to your users. We all know that. It makes better products. And when you don't talk to your users, after a period of time, your product dies a slow and painful death. This probably died faster than slow, but it'll still die a slow and painful death.
Yeah. And people who used it probably died along. Anyway. Or they wished that they would anyway.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. So going back to the company, what's the Cheetos lip balm of a company? Actually, here's kind of the problem, that as bad as Cheetos lip balm is, I think we can all agree.
It's probably
it's a crowd pleaser. Yeah. We all agree. When a company doesn't get the UX right, it gets pretty bad, actually. You get some of the standard stuff that you get with a normal product, which is you get churn, so you get people leaving, employees leaving. But when people are leaving, when customers are leaving your software product, they're leaving because they're paying you money to use it and you're not delivering. When your employees are leaving, they're leaving even though you're paying them. So This is bad churn, right? Progress is grinding to a halt, just like with, you can't do your job with a bad product, you can't do your job in a bad company either. Not going to happen. And then on at the very bad end of this, you actually get burnout. And burnout is something that there's been in the news a bit about this now. It's a new diagnosis and everything like that. But I don't think it's even nearly enough talked about. We had a company retreat where we brought in the full remote team. We do that 3 times a year. On the last one, we sat down and we all started sharing stories about burnout, like the experiences we've had. And we're not a huge company, but there was except for one person or something, every single Lookbacker had personal experiences of burnout or near burnout, either actually at Lookback or in other companies. Right. And there weren't any bad companies in the other companies. Good companies also create burnout. And when it happens, it's very often related to bad company UX. I don't understand how I can, use this. I don't understand what to do with it, or it's not doing what it's supposed to do, or I'm trying to use this feature, and if I could, it would be great, but I can't, and then you start blaming yourself and all those things, right? And I think that the problem is this slow, painful death. You're not going to fail fast enough on this. When you notice burnout in your company, it's too late. You're supposed to notice that way faster than that. Same thing when you're building a product without good UX. You're not going to notice right away. You're going to have a dangerous amount of success before things start turning really bad. So you're not going to make it a priority unless you make it your priority. And this is I think that CEOs all over the place, and I've certainly done it myself, we fail miserably at company UX constantly. And we need to get better. And I think that one thing I've been inspired about with researchers and working with you and Tabenitha is that you make research and UX your priority, even when everyone else is telling you that it's not the priority right now. And I think that's something that we should all learn. Yeah.
What about before Tabenitha and I came on? How many researchers had you had?
So we had no researchers at Lookback. It's not. We had Riley, the intern. Big shout out to Riley. Riley is a great guy, and he's been very successful. And he tried to kind of open our eyes to this thing with UX. But we were we know this. We have 1,000 of UX researchers using our product, and they're giving us feedback. We don't need research, right? And research is a project. It's not something you have to do all the time. It wasn't really good. But now we've gotten it right. We hired some people. It's been great. And but it's only a first step. And now it's going to get really meta here. Okay, so hold on. We can go even further, though, later. So we're not going to do that.
Yeah, we'll try.
Let's take one meta level. Okay? So hiring people who know this stuff is not going to be more than a first step. And why is that, Kacie?
Because it's great when you have that kind of buy-in, when you have leadership that believes in UXR, you have someone willing to take a chance on UXR or get a budget for UXR. But again, that's just the first step, because the hardest part is getting adoption and having this integrated within the process. So you think about this as a first-time researcher or building your practice from scratch. It's brand new. You're introducing all of these new practices or these new processes. You're interacting with all of these new cross-functional team members. And what do you have to do when you're in this new environment? Okay, well, you kind of slow down. You take a moment. You take people out for coffee. You interview them. You understand their pain points. You understand what's working well. You capture gaps. You get to know who your users are. And on top of getting to know who your customers are. So essentially, and this is the meta part, it's we're building a product within a product within a product. So when a product fails, what are the things that can go wrong? And we're thinking about this as building a practice as a product. So maybe your value proposition is unclear. Okay, so you haven't established the fact that UX research is vital and what it means. So what do? Well, maybe you take some time and you create some curriculum, or you establish a brown bag, or you take people through Research 101, and you teach your team about qualitative research. Maybe your onboarding flow is broken in your product. Okay, so thinking about your practice. So your onboarding flow, maybe you haven't set context. You haven't told people how to actually use your product or how it actually operates. So you take a step back and you say, okay, well, I'm going to establish these processes and systems to make it really clear, to make sure everyone feels like they're on the same page, that everyone feels like they have the same foundation, and that everyone feels like they have a piece in it. So I'll create a brief, and it's a strategic tool, foundational to every work. Okay. But then, people aren't using it. That's the worst. So you built this product and no one's using it. Okay, well, why? Well, have you done the work to understand your users? Do you know what resonates with everyone? What is it going to take in order for an engineer to see and believe what you're saying? What is it going to take for a leader to see and believe what you're saying? What is it going to take for a designer to see and believe what you're saying? So you really you're having to apply this process within the process. It's like the UX of UX, the product within a product within a product. So you're building this new practice. For those of you out there, it's going to take some time, and that's okay, but take your time. Take your time to get to know people, to build those relationships, to generate influence slowly. Don't try to get it in there super fast. That's not a good idea. But then, quickly, conduct your research. Generate your insights. Have the data to share and to bring people along. Have that be part of your conversation. So doing these things is really going to help establish your practice, enhance your practice, and ultimately enable you to create that product that all of your users find valuable.
Are you saying that the importance of research in building a product is the same as the importance of research in building a company? I see. Very good. Yeah, it's almost like a superpower. You can really apply this thing broadly, and I encourage you to do that. Right? Your research practice is a product, and it has users, and you have the skill sets. We've been talking about burnout. We've been talking about slow, painful death, and it can get a bit dark. We've also laughed a lot, but I mean, it is dark when we get this wrong. And I used to think when we wrote this speech, I was like, it's mostly because it's a company and people can't really leave, and it's very personal and everything. But then I heard Odetta speak in the speech in the leadership track yesterday. Where are you, Odetta? Are you here? Ovetta, sorry. She's not here.
It's fine.
Anyway, she's great. Check her out. But she was talking about a research project she did on the waiting room in a hospital and how that flow had been designed. And she really illustrated the UX of a hospital waiting room can be catastrophic, and it can actually kill people if you don't get it right. So, sometimes the switching cost is very bad. But in all of this darkness of things that can go wrong, you have the skill set to do it, and you can apply it broadly, not only to improving the UX of a product, but to teach your CEO to improve the UX of the company, or just to be more impactful with your team. And it can go super meta, even, right?
Yeah, because essentially what we're talking about is the UX skill set and how we use it as researchers, how we teach it to our teams, how we try to embed this mindset within our organizations. Really, the deep little nugget in there is that we're really teaching human connection, because we're teaching about deep understanding of people and building trust. And so ultimately, that can be stretched out to really anything. So it's applicable to our workforce, obviously, but then how do we treat our families as products? What is the experience that we're giving them? What is the experience they need from us? To our friends, to just people that we interact with on a daily basis. So thinking about whether or not you're building a company, or you're building an app, or you're building a practice, whatever product you are making, happy researching.
And that's it.
Yeah.